This is K.M. Weiland, and you are listening to the 86th episode of the Wordplay Podcast. Now that I'm finished with the first draft of The Deepest Breath, my schedule is cleared enough for me to focus some serious time on my nonfiction book, Outlining Your Novel, Plan Your Way to Success. Nonfiction is about 1 billion times easier to write than fiction, particularly if the subject is one in which you're already well versed. So the book is rolling right along, and I'm having a lot of fun compiling it and scheming out fun extras to include. If all goes according to plan, I hope to be able to share the book with you all before the end of the year. I'm also hard at work on another rewrite of my Fantasy Dreamers. After cutting 40,000 words in the last rewrite and streamlining the plot into a lean, mean fighting machine, it's time to go back and flesh out descriptions and explanations. I'm particularly having fun reviewing the 30 pages of world-building notes I wrote during the outlining stage, and figuring out what I can include to increase the setting's verisimilitude. 3 places where you should tell instead of show. The latest post in the video series on my blog uses examples from Patrick O'Brien's The Reverse of the Medal to highlight 3 scenes in which it's better to summarize than dramatize. You can watch the video on my blog at wordplay-kmweiland, that's weiland.blogspot.com. New videos are posted every Wednesday. Meanwhile, enjoy this week's podcast, 8 signs your writing is stuck in a rut, and why you should care. Laziness and fear, a writer's 2 great nemeses, do their best to keep us stuck in the writing rut. Usually it's a very comfortable rut. All our characters are down there with us, keeping us company, cooking up tea, playing chess, and just generally having a happy old time. Life isn't very difficult, since we never have to force ourselves to reach higher or stretch farther. We get to sit in our comfy swivel chairs and watch our stories replay themselves, with slight variations, over and over again like TV Land marathons. Actually, you say, that doesn't sound so bad. What's the big problem here? Well, I'll tell you. The problem, in a word, is stagnation. And where stagnation lives, art dies. As Writer's Digest editor Jessica Strouser points out in her February 2011 editor's letter, the best writers are the ones who never stop trying to get better, the ones who set their egos aside, no matter how successful they are, and challenge themselves to push the limits of what they can achieve. Whether they consciously realize it or not, most writers often have one particular story they're meant to tell, and they tell it over and over again all their lives. For example, Charles Dickens's body of work represents a deep concern for the poor and indebted, and my own fiction often carries a theme of redemption through self-sacrifice. It's important to recognize and understand this inevitable repetition, but it's also important to understand that these repeating themes are no excuse not to be forever pushing the boundaries of our craft. Novelist Joe Menno, in an interview with Mark Castle, explained the difference. The thing I love about Dave Eggers and Dennis Johnson is their willingness to try and reinvent themselves from book to book, especially Johnson, who's written crime noir books, science fiction-inspired books, books about drug experiences, spy-influenced material. I'd hate it if someone read one of my books and thought, this is exactly like the last thing he wrote. It's a goal I have, writing books with very different styles and tones. Thanks to laziness and fear, and often oblivion, it's much too easy to fall into comfortable patterns that eventually descend into blatant repetition. So how do we know that we're teetering on the edge of a rut? Following are some signs. 1. You find yourself reusing familiar phrases. 2. You write stories that fit only into one particular niche. 3. Your stories return to the same thematic arc over and over. 4. Your writing is no longer challenging. 5. You never experiment with POV, tense, or style. 6. Your characters are all the same person, except maybe they have different hair colors. 7. Your stories all begin and end in basically the same way. 8. You've stopped studying the craft. 1 or 2 of these symptoms aren't necessarily indicative of a problem, but if you find yourself nodding your head at 3 or more, it may be time to take action and evaluate how you can push yourself out of your comfort zone and make your next story an exciting new adventure for both you and your readers. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, visit me on the web at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com, and be sure to listen again next week.